Vietnam has emerged as one of the most stunning manufacturing success stories in the history of modern world. And the entire planet is shocked to see that a nation which was once bombed, burnt and written off as a hopeless country until 1975, a country with one of the highest poverty rate on the entire earth, pulling in giants like Apple, Samsung, Nike, Intel, LG and Boeing.
A land once devastated by American bombing now accounts for half of Nike's global shoe production. Hundreds of other American companies and their suppliers have manufacturing bases in Vietnam too.
In just a few decades, Vietnam has eliminated extreme poverty, become one of the top exporters to the United States, and turned itself into a manufacturing hub for companies like Apple and Samsung.
And not just that, 50 years back, Vietnam was in such a pathetic state that it was damaged by one of the most brutal war of 20th century, a war that left their cities in rubble, their fields poisoned, and millions of their people died or fleeing. But in the next 5 decades, they have done so well that they have lifted around 40 million people out of the poverty, crushing their poverty rate from nearly 60% down to about only 14%. And here is the part that should genuinely sting for us as Indians. Vietnam, a country with 1/5 size of India, with 1/10 of India's workforce and a 30-year late start in industrial policies, somehow attracted Apple and Samsung onto their soil before India did. So the question is that should make everyone curious is that how did Vietnam go from war-devastated, poverty-inflated country to becoming one of the fastest manufacturing nation in the world? What exactly was their strategies? And most importantly, what are the lessons that India need to learn from the rise of Vietnam? The story of Vietnam dates back to one of the bloodiest chapters of the 20th century, the Vietnam War. For nearly 2 decades, this small Southeast Asian nation was shredded apart in a brutal conflict between the communist North and the American-backed South. And the scale of devastation is even hard to imagine. American forces dropped more bombs on Vietnam than were dropped by all sides combined in the entire Second World War. Entire villages were wiped out. Chemical weapons like Agent Orange poisoned the land and the people for generations. And then on April 30, 1975, when war was finally ended with the fall of Saigon, Vietnam was reunified. But it was broken, bleeding and shattered country. But you know what guys? Misery did not end with the war because what comes after was almost as devastating. Vietnam was now a closed, communist and central planned economy where private business were practically banned. Basically, the government controlled everything and because of that, their economy collapsed. There was famine, there was a food shortage and inflation at a point ran into 100%. And because Vietnam was the communist state aligned against the West, United States slapped crushing economy sanctions on it, cutting it off from the global economy entirely. So throughout the late 70s and 80s, Vietnam was one of the poorest, most isolated country on the entire planet. And their situation was so desperate that hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese fled the country by the sea in tiny and overcrowded boats. And the world came to know them as the boat people and many of them died in ocean trying to escape. And this is when the country was in the worst possible phase. And just like the world had once written off Bangladesh, the world has completely lost hope in Vietnam. So now the question is, how on earth did they actually grow? Well, in 1986, the Vietnam government did something that for a hardline communist country was nothing short of a miracle. They looked at what their giant neighbor China had begun in 1978. They swallowed their ideological pride and started their own version of economic reforms. And they call it Doi Moi, which literally means renovation. And ladies and gentlemen, this single decision changed the fate of entire nation because Doi Moi was built on three powerful pillars, and these three pillars are exactly what turned this broken, war-studded country into the factory of Asia. So let's go through each one of them. The first pillar was the open door FDI policy. Vietnam opened its door to the foreign companies and crucially, they let them come in and own their factories 100% with almost no restriction. No forced local partner, no endless permissions and full freedom to take their profits home. Now to understand why this is such a big deal, let's understand this through a very simple story. Let's say we have Mr. Kim, an executive at a giant Korean electronic company that wants to build a new factory somewhere in Asia to escape the rising cost in China. And Mr. Kim has the two options, India and Vietnam. In India, Mr. Kim is told that he might need a local partner, he will need approvals from the Environment Department, the Power Department, the Water Department and from the Land Department. And this whole process of setting up a single factory could take him anywhere from 1.5 years to 5 years long. Whereas in Vietnam, Mr. Kim is told that here is a ready-made industrial park with power, roads and water already built. You can own 100% of your factory and Vietnam government provide a single window system that clear their paperwork as fast as possible. All they have to do is come and start building in just few months. Now you tell me, if you were Mr. Kim, where would you go? Obviously Vietnam, right? And this is the exact decision that thousands of real executives made. Because while India was busy wrapping up investors in the red tape, Vietnam was rolling out the red carpet for them. But here is the catch. Even Vietnam opened the door did not fully work at the first because of one giant obstacle, the US sanctions. So the real flood of foreign money only began in 1994 when the United States finally lifted those sanctions. And the moment that happened, the world's biggest companies came rushing in. And if that is clear to you, here comes the second pillar, which is free trade agreement superpower. Over last 25 years, Vietnam went on a spree and signed over 17 free trade agreements, including two of the biggest in the world, which is CPTPP, connecting it to Japan, Canada, Australia, and European Union Vietnam FTA, which gave a tariff-free access to the entire European Union. Now to understand the power of this, let's take another simple example. Let's say we have Nike and Nike wants to make shoes and sell them to the customers in Europe. Now if Nike make those shoes in India, when those shoes land in Europe, Nike might have to pay an import tax, let's say 12%. So a pair of shoe that cost 100 rupees to make now effectively cost 112 rupees to sell in Europe. But if Nike makes the exact same shoe in Vietnam, thanks to the European Union Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, that import tax is zero. So a Vietnam made shoe is instantly 12% cheaper in Europe market than a made in India shoe. So do you realize what Vietnam did? By signing the free trade agreement with almost entire world, it turned itself into the cheapest possible launchpad to the export to anywhere on the earth. And meanwhile, what was India doing? India was so scared of cheapest foreign good flooding its market that in 2019, it actually walked out of RCEP, the biggest trade deal in all the Asia, at a very last minute. So while Vietnam was building a tariff-free highways to every market in the world, India was busy building the tax and even walked out of the trade deal that could have took India slightly closer to becoming a manufacturing hub. And this brings us to the third and perhaps the most important pillar of Vietnam's success story, because there comes the supply chain density. And this single concept explains the most shocking paradox of all. So listen this very, very carefully. The Indian workers are actually cheaper than Vietnamese worker. Indian wages are roughly 30 to 40% lower for the similar work. So logically, making things in India should be cheaper. But in reality, it's opposite. Operating a factory in Vietnam works out around 30% cheaper than India. But the question is, how is this even possible? To understand this, you first have to understand the power of clustering. So let's take the example. Imagine if you want to assemble a smartphone, a single smartphone needs about 100 different parts like a screen, a battery, a camera, tiny screws, circuit boards, cables and so on. Now imagine two factories. The first factory is in Vietnam, sitting inside an electronic cluster, let's say over 7,000 component suppliers packed into the same region. So when this factory needs a battery or a screw, the supplier is just few kilometers away. It gets the part within the hours. No shipment, no import tax and no waiting time. The second factory is in India, in a cluster that has only about 800 suppliers. So out of the 100 parts it need, maybe only 40 are available locally. The other 60% need to be imported, mostly from China. And the moment you import, you pay shipping, you pay customs and you wait for the weeks. And till the time you get the components, your money sits stuck at the port. So now do the math. Even though the Indian factories pay its workers less, but it pays more for the parts, more for the shipping, more for the customs, and most importantly, it loses the precious time. And when you add it all up, the cheap labor advantage gets completely wiped out and the Indian factory ends up about 30% more expensive to run. Now let me show you this whole story through the real companies because the numbers say it all. Just like every other country had its hero, Vietnam's manufacturing miracle had its hero too. And that hero is Korean company called Samsung. Samsung made its first small investment in Vietnam back in 1996. But the real explosion came from 2009 when it shifted its mobile production out of the China into Vietnam. And by 2017, Samsung has pumped into an estimated $14 billion and Samsung directly employing over 1 lakh Vietnamese people. And today, Samsung alone exports around 55 billion worth of the goods from Vietnam alone, which is nearly half of the Vietnam's electronic export from a single company. But you know what guys, here is the story that genuinely hurts for India. In 2020, a company called BYD, which is one of the Apple's manufacturing partner, wanted to shift its iPad production out of the China and India was in the race to grab it. But because of the border conflict in 2020, India has banned many Chinese companies and bring the strict rules requiring government scrutiny for Chinese investment. So the deal with India collapsed. And guess where the BYD went? Vietnam, where it set up a factory turning out millions of tablets every single year. And one of the report bluntly put it that Vietnam's gain was the India's loss. Now to be fair and balanced, Vietnam miracle is not perfect because almost 98 to 99% of its high-tech export comes from the foreign companies, not from Vietnamese one, which simply means is that Vietnam's only does the lower value assembly while the real technology and profit belongs to the outsiders. And it depends heavily on China for its raw material. So Vietnam in a way is stuck in a low margin assembly work, and this is actually where India, with a huge scale, with its own engineers and massive domestic market, still has a real long-term shot. And India even grabbed one big jewel. Apple's iPhone is now being assembled in India under PLI scheme. So India might be down, but it's absolutely not out. And I am attaching the study material of this case study in the description so that you can verify and you can learn by yourself. And this is the credible story of how a tiny war-shredded country called Vietnam became the factory of Asia, while a giant called India just watched from the sideline until it was almost too late. And I hope that you learned something from this valuable case study. And if you do, then please make sure to share this episode with your friends and family, and I'll see you in the next one.